not the one we called up, is it?
That'd take a while. And this is how you come down. All right. Well, I've left for home. I'm not home. I've been driving home, and I guess there's a cyclone-style storm that has hit Vancouver Island. It's pretty nasty. I was talking to Sarah. It started at about 4 o'clock or 3:30 Pacific time, and she said that a huge tree had already smashed into our neighbor's house. Fell on top of the trees, falling down all over the place. The animals are going crazy. But I'm pretty sure I cleaned out any trees that would possibly hit the barn or the house earlier this fall. And we also have a brand new generator. There's 2 generators, and they're all set up. So generators are going, they've got power. The power went out while we were talking. They got food, they can cook, they can play on the internet. Everything's safe and sound, except the wind is apparently going absolutely ape shit. The entire town of Tofino is without power, and now our town is without power. The highway's shut down. The ferries are canceled. So, I guess I'm in no rush to get home. It's kind of weird. It's a couple years ago, I was stuck up in the north for a few weeks when every single highway in British Columbia got washed away. It had different places, areas that washed away from screwed up rains and storms. Again, right? Crazy. So, I guess all I got left to do right now is to relax and share some emails, which I like to do. Trying to get comfy here, and I decided to, hold on a second. I decided to put the GoPro on the dash of my truck, actually strapped it onto the cell phone holder, and I hit record so that you guys could have something to look at during this video. And I don't know, I don't even know how the video will turn out. I haven't a freaking clue. I'm just gonna add it on here without proof watching, as usual. I think there's a couple of good accidents on there, rigs and cars going in the ditch, and you'll see what it's like to drive on ice and snow covered highway for hours. It's not that enjoyable. Really. Now, what do we got here? I've got, I went back in my inbox before I left, and I found a whole slew of emails that I had not read. And so I've been mixing it up as usual, recent and past that I've missed. And here's one I'd like to share with you. And I didn't see this one. I did talk to David a few times in the past, but I had this email on there as unread. So I'm gonna share it. This is from in the past. Not the past, but 2019. This is titled Sasquatch. I'm sending this message to this email as I do not have an alternate one. I've been following you for quite some time, and I'm always struck by your honesty and passion. Your commitment to helping others is noble, and the reason I'm reaching out to you, I am your counterpart here in the States. I spent a lifetime investigating sightings and interviewing eyewitnesses all over the southeast U.S. I abhor the mainstream Bigfooting, but wanted to get out the word that these beings, your phrase is exactly accurate, are much more than we've been led to believe. The evidence had led me to other truths that make Sasquatch pale in comparison. Anyway, I built the world's biggest and most complete Bigfoot museum to re-educate the public. 7,000 square feet of interactive and life-size displays. It took me 3 years and over $150,000 to complete. I did most of the designing and building. Because my passion is learning, this is not a roadside tourist trap. The subject matter deserves respect, so everything is spec-built to perfection. Think Disney, not 10th grade science fair. This is my way to get back to the old-timers that stuck their necks out 40 to 50 years ago, and to catch kids before the mind indoctrination program kicks in. I have many stories that have led me to the inevitable conclusion that we are not, and have never been, alone here. These creatures, and others even more frightening, have been created and placed here for reasons I still do not understand. I do not want to make this a long email. I just wanted to give you a nod and say you're a good man. From many witnesses, thank you. I'm watching you every time you post and loving the way you kick the shit out of the bullies. That is my way too. David Becerra, Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum, Blue Ridge, Georgia. You know what I think would be good to have David on here with me and have a conversation, because obviously he's learned a lot. He didn't get stuck right here reading that email. And I think I can get a hold of him and see if he wants to do the Zoom thing and have a conversation for all of us, for all of you to listen to. I think that'd be quite interesting, don't you? I think I'm going to do that. Oops, I better retitle that email. Look into, to make sure that I follow up. Now, okay, who is next? Who's next? What do we got? Scrolling down. Scrolling. Here we go. What's this? Having a clue. That I'm going to share right now. Here we go, you guys. This is titled, Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, for the tip about the Mel K. Duran show. So much truth and information in a short amount of time. Absolutely brilliant. Steve, you're a great man doing great things to benefit us all. Be safe out there. We care about you and your family. Wayne in Washington State, with a picture of his Club No Return on his vehicle. Appreciate the kind words, my man. Stay safe, Wayne. You have a great Christmas too, all right? Truly appreciate your support. Yeah, where am I? All right, here we go. This is titled Incident at Mississippi's Pascagoula Bay. Pascagoula Bay. Always listening to you, Steve. We are emailing in our second incident. Our first one was at our home on the Smith River along California's coast. We sent it to you and you read it. So we thought the listeners would enjoy this one too. This incident was as we were traveling with our travel trailer from Florida to Arizona. We arrived at our scheduled RV site around 9:30 p.m. at Shepherd State Park on the Pascagoula Way in Mississippi. It was pitch black as we arrived, so much so that I had to direct my husband into our RV site with my cell phone because you couldn't see anything except what was directly in front of your headlights. Our state-issued RV site was in the back loop, and there were no other campers back there. We had no idea we were where we were or what the campground looked like. On our map, it didn't look as remote as it felt when we arrived. We started hooking up the trailer and disconnecting it from the truck. We were really tired, so went right into the trailer and got ready to retire for the night. As was our normal, we read for a while. It was a very pleasant evening, so we opened all our windows. After about a half an hour, I started hearing what sounded like 4-inch wide rocks being thrown that landed, hitting other rocks as they landed. That happened a few times. Then we started hearing what sounded similar to an owl, but you could tell definitely was not an owl. It definitely sounded like something trying to sound like an owl. It went on at regular 15 to 45 second intervals for about an hour. Around 11:30 p.m. it switched from an owl sound to a very strange monkey sound about every 15 to 45 seconds. This really scared us, so we closed all the windows and pulled down the blinds. My husband turned on the porch lights and it thankfully stopped. My husband woke up around 4:30 a.m. and I heard him, but had a hard time trying to wake up. I did hear him wandering around disconnecting us from the utilities and hooking us up to the truck. He suddenly and loudly came into the trailer. He said, "I heard that thing again. It was walking in the woods around the trailer and was making the monkey noise again." Then he said a little louder, "You're never picking out the camp spot again." He went back out and started up the truck and turned on the lights and came in reporting the sound stopped. I suspect whatever it was didn't like the lights. Thanks for listening and keeping us all informed. Thankful we've never seen one, since I don't think I'd be able to forget it. God bless you and yours fondly, Danny and Sherry Barkley. Thank you, Danny and Sherry Barkley. Appreciate you big time. Now, I don't recall your first email, but I believe you that I read it. And there you go. They said where. We'll see who else chimes in about being at the same place and having the same experience. Now, let's try and get a little more comfortable here. Enjoying the drive, you guys? It's a knuckle gripper, I'll tell you what, driving on that ice and passing rigs nonstop. Okay. Mark this as read. Oops. Mark that as read. This is titled, "Holy Shit, Steve," in caps lock. Hello, Steve. As always, thank you for everything you do and everything this channel offers. The Club of No Return. And just so you can connect my emails together, I'm the guy that wrote in about having worked for the world's largest publishing company and the control they assert in this world. Yeah, that was recent. I totally enjoyed that and was appreciative of that. And now, in caps lock, "Holy shit, Steve, do I have an experience to share with you. This scared the shit out of me and my children, as well as a dozen other people that are in the same area of the Brown County State Park in Indiana last night." Holy shit, this is recent, you guys. My children, a 12-year-old boy and 8-year-old girl, and I went for a hike in the same park where my dog and I encountered something huge many years ago. I wrote into you about the experience and you read it to the club. Anyway, the children asked questions about my experiences and asked if I would show them where I saw it. So I took them into the woods on that trail. When we got to that spot, the sun was going down fairly quickly. I showed the kids where it stood and where my dog and I were, and retold the story and how it ran away on 2 feet. The kids were getting nervous as it got darker and darker. We headed down the trail toward the head as I answered the questions about whether they should be scared or not. Along the way, we heard a few whoops and talked about that. I'll bet you did. As we got to the trailhead, which comes out at a playground, Oliver says, "So if I say its name 3 times, will it pop out of nowhere and come after us?" I told him he needed not to do that, and that he better learn to respect them. And just as we got halfway across the playground, Oliver shouted, "Sasquatch! Sasquatch! Sasquatch!" As I was saying, "Stop it," something that sounded like a herd of rhinoceroses came straight for us through the woods, smashing into trees along the way, and all of a sudden a tree that was about 12 inches across and 20 feet long came flying out of the woods toward us. Altogether, the noise lasted about 3 to 4 seconds. I've heard plenty of trees fall while I was within 10 to 30 feet from them, and this was not a normal tree fall. After the commotion settled, and we did that adrenaline-soaked laughing thing for a few minutes and discussed what it could have been, we pulled our SUV over to the playground and shined our high beams into the woods toward the flying tree. We found a 20-foot-long felled tree that had been clearly been on the ground for many years already. It was wet and dark all the way through, soft enough to plunge a 14-inch machete all the way to the grip into the core of both ends of the tree. It was thrown right through the crook of 2 neighboring trees where it had been broken off at both places where it was in these trees. Both ends were leaning down to the ground, and the center of the tree was still hanging horizontally between the 2 trees. These breaks were clearly fresh because they were not nearly as dark and wet as the ends. There were no other fallen trees anywhere else nearby, no freshly broken trees in the vicinity, and no stumps where this tree could have come from. It had to have been thrown. While exploring the area on that side of the playground, we heard some whoops in the distance and a couple of owls that didn't quite sound right on the other side of the playground, so we pulled the vehicle to that side and shined the brights in the tree line there. We sat there for about 5 minutes just scanning the trees, and I saw a few sets of eyes shine that I was pointing out to the kids. And just as Oliver was saying, "Dad," I shouted, "Sit down, Isabella. We gotta go." Because the eye shine that I was looking at had started coming toward us quickly. As I drove away, I caught a flash of eye shine high up near a tree that had been about 6 feet from the passenger side of the window. Oliver asked, "Did you see that?" I responded, "I think so. What did you see?" He was clearly shaken as he told me that he had seen something poke its big head out, 12 to 15 feet off the ground from behind the tree. That was only a few feet from him. We headed straight for the park exit, talking about what we'd seen and what else it could have been. And as I was driving over the speed limit toward the exit, something appeared right in front of us. It's hard to explain what it was, and my brain had a hard time processing what it was. It was at least 3-dimensional, stood a few feet taller than my full-size SUV, so it must have been at least 9 feet or taller, and was at least 5 feet wide. It looked like a cloud of small, white flower petals, and a kind of a digital blur to it, and I couldn't make out the outer boundaries where this thing ended and the surroundings began. And keep in mind, there are no trees with this type of flowers or leaves anywhere near this area, and there's nothing above this area or even close. Just open sky for a long, long way. As I kept driving, it glided just out of the way so I wouldn't hit it, but my side mirror almost touched it as I drove past. Oliver and I both got really bad headaches before we left the boundaries of the state park. I'm not sure why it happened. Maybe from the stress, maybe from the sabe, maybe the sabe made it happen, who knows? Both the kids said they saw everything I saw, but Isabella kept saying she was seeing the same kind of things along the road all the way home. Oliver got irritated with her and told her to stop because we were being very serious and she needed to respect what had happened. He looked at me in all seriousness with wide eyes and said, "Dad, I never believed in sabe before, but tonight changed my life. I definitely believe in them now." Thank goodness. I think I, with the help of a troop of big hairy friends, got the point across to him that he needs to respect them. And the wild in general. Wow. That is crazy. Now, here is another one added on. Now, here's a note. For your eyes only unless you decide to make it public. Gosh, you know what? I'm not the police. I'm not the email police. You know, I never keep anything. We're all together here, one big family. I never keep anything from anyone. Like, I don't choose what the people hear or not. If somebody asks me not to read something publicly, I don't read it. But I don't choose. So I'm just going to start reading. And I haven't a clue what he's going to say, so here we go. Any chance you'd be interested, or do you have any club members who would be all in to start a village/commune/community of like-minded people in their property, or maybe on a TBD piece of land that could be purchased by the groups as a whole? We can all accomplish so much more together. This is the biggest reason we all kept apart by the powers that be. They know we are far too powerful to be stopped if we decide to be. Please do respond and let me know your thoughts on this. I'm trying to get something real going, and I'd really like it to be a group of good and honest people that live off the land by helping each other out. I have a ton of knowledge and experience in all aspects of the building trades, both commercial and residential, and tons of other areas of life that I'd love to share with you one day. Have an amazing day, Steve. Stay awesome, Matthew H. Well, that's an odd request. I don't know. I mean, not me. I'm good. I've got my my little chunk of dirt, but who knows? Maybe there is people who would be interested in that. I don't know. Drop a note in the comment section below, you guys, if that seems to trigger a response in you. And good luck. Good luck. Keep those kids safe. Please. All right, now, this is an email from where I just was. Sort of. Well, I was here a couple times this past week. Photos and short story from Fort St. John. Hello, Steve and the Howdown family. Please do share my story. My name is Mike Dixon, and I live in Fort St. John, British Columbia. Thank you for all you and Sarah do. You're both amazing. Appreciate the kind words. So my wife Susie and I were at a campsite with a 27-foot pull behind camper. It was south of Prince George. This was a few years back because we were both wanting to see a Sasquatch or UFO. We meditate and or mind speak out loud asking for an encounter, stressing for a friendly encounter. I mind speak out loud to Sasquatch and Susie does toward the UFOs. We also use laser pointers. Insert Steve saying, quote, be careful what you wish for, end quote. Or, quote, bad idea, end quote, LOL. Yeah, well, you know, everybody's bride's different. We both know this could go terribly wrong. But we always remain positive. Well, nothing happened before we went to bed. But in the middle of the night, we had something bang on the camper 3 separate times. The bangs happened at the end of the camper where we were sleeping. Now this is the weird part. The bangs were not loud enough to totally wake us up, but we both experienced the same thing. I know for a fact that I should have at least woken up enough to see if Susie heard it too. Well, that's the short story. Now I'd like to share the trail cam photos of what I believe to be some sort of a craft. These are from a trusted friend, and I would like to know what you think, Steve. Maybe some of the viewers could chime in at the comment section. He has given me permission to share, but without his name or location of photos. Please note, he has also had random tree knocks happen while out hiking/hunting. The other day, while asking him for permission to share the photos, he did say he has other strange things happened out there. If he elaborates on that, I'll write in with that info for sure. I have another sobbing encounter from other family members that I may elaborate on if permission given. Thanks and take care, Howd Hunt family. This is just for you, Steve. Okay, hold on a second. I got your note. Email us anytime. Now, that is definitely a weird trail camera photo. 2 of them. So a lot of trail cameras will be set for 1, 2, or 3 photos at a time. So obviously this must have been set for 2. And if it was set for 2, then this object wasn't traveling that fast. How can I say that? Because of my experience of trail cameras and deer and animals running by. A deer bounding by the time it takes a second photo, is much further than this object has made it in one frame. Looks like the logo on the Star Trek uniforms, doesn't it? From way back in the day on a horizontal. But there you go. Shared. And make sure you get the rest of your experiences shared with us too, all right, man? Make sure you share them with us. We want to hear them. We want to hear it all. Now, before I forget, I gotta save these so I don't forget to put them in the frickin' video, which I do a lot. But it's not hard to do, because sometimes I'll read 8 or 9 emails, right? And then by the time I'm done, I forget that there was photos attached previously. Now, scrolling down, Prince George and around everywhere in the world. Everywhere. Stuff is going on. What do we got? This is titled Encounter. Mark this as red. Hi, I'll try to keep this short, but you know how stories go. First, I'd like to say thank you for what you do. A little background info. I've been an adventure athlete since I was 16, now I'm 54. I've spent countless hours and days and weeks climbing, backpacking, running, cross-country skiing in Yosemite, the Sierras, Death Valley, Joshua Tree, and the mountains and forests of New Mexico. So I've become tuned into my surroundings, familiarizing myself with sounds and smells. Okay, my encounter occurred 2 years ago, 2017, in I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly. Now, it's spelt Jemez, but I'm guessing by now, from learning from all you, it's probably pronounced Jemez, mountains in New Mexico. My wife and I had originally decided to do some camping in the Jemez Falls campground. This was during the week in the early month of July. The temperature mild during the day and cool at night. When we arrived at the campground, there was a sign stating it was full, so we decided to head down the mountain a couple of miles to a less frequented campground. But to our surprise, they said they were full as well. Not wanting to head back, I asked the camp host if there was another campground, and the host mentioned they had opened a primitive area further up the mountain about 8 miles away. So, my wife and I decided to check it out, and upon arrival, we saw that there were some campers there, scattered. So we pushed further in and found a spot in a little valley. And from where we decided to pitch our tent, we could see a trailer about 100 yards away with a family and no one else around. So after settling, and now around 6 p.m., we decided to go for a little walk to check our surroundings. And not more than 30 yards from our tent, I saw a print in an area where it appeared to have been muddy days before and now dry. The print was twice as wide as mine, and there was only half a print. It appeared as if a Sasquatch, was walking on his toes. I tried to look for other tracks, but didn't find anything. Just one solitary print moving from one side of the trail to the other. Not wanting to scare my wife when she asked me what it was, I said it was a bear track. Anyway, so we headed back to the camp and made some dinner. And as soon as the sun went down, we made a fire and sat around the fire talking, drinking some coffee. From where we were at, we could see our neighbors. They too had a big-ass fire and were listening to music loudly. I should add, this went on for about 30 minutes. And this is where things changed. We began to hear branches break about 20 yards from us off toward 10 o'clock, but it just wasn't one or two breaks. There were many, all at the same time, one after the other. It was like crack, 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 crack. And these were not little breaks, they were big. And I mean big. So I stood up, and I picked up my mag light, and it took about 15 steps towards the sound, and as soon as I shined the light in the general area, it all stopped. I thought maybe it was the neighbors, but I could see them by the fire and moving about in their tent, going in and out of the trailer. So I returned and sat down again, and no sooner had I sat down when the brakes began again, non-stop for like another 2 minutes. So I got up again, and this time my wife came with me, and I turned on the mag light and again lit up the area, and we saw 3 sets of eye shine looking back at us. The shine was like a pearl white glow, and they were big. It appeared to be peeking behind the trees as they would sway to the right or left and would disappear and then appear again. My wife asked me what it was, and I said I didn't know. My wife asked me if maybe it was the neighbors. I looked towards their camp and saw that they had gone into their big tent, and the trailer lights were turned off and the fire out. I thought no one would be walking around in the forest without flashlights, right? I flashed my mag light again, and again 3 sets of eyes were looking back. I wasn't scared, and we decided to sit back by the fire, and again the brakes began. I wasn't afraid or nervous, but I didn't want my wife to be afraid, so, being a Christian, I said to my wife that I was going to pray, and she agreed. As soon as I began to pray and say the name of Jesus, everything stopped. And note, there were no sounds of footsteps leaving the area. It was so quiet. But soon the night sounds returned. We stayed another night without any further occurrence, but what I found strange is how the neighbors just completely shut everything down and went in their tent and trailer, because certainly they heard those brakes. They were like firecrackers. I cannot deny that as soon as I began to pray, everything stopped. And this makes me believe that there is a spiritual side to the story of these beings. Nephilim, ? Fallen angels, or demonic nature? I don't know. But prayer for the believer is most important in these moments. I have other experiences while climbing in the Sierras in Yosemite, but I'll leave that for another day. Feel free to use my name, and thanks for how you do what you do. In friendship, Martin Spence. Martin, I appreciate you, man. Really appreciate you sharing that, big time. And you got some more weird experiences? Send them our way. Send them our way. And there you go, another person who has seen that they respect the word of prayer, right? Why is that? Why is that, you guys? This next one is titled Bear or Bigfoot ? Hi Steve, I stumbled on your site about a year ago and I love it. I'm a 62-year-old female. I grew up in the city, South St. Louis, Missouri. I'm not an outdoors person, though as a child I wanted to be. I'd watch Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom and Disney films about forest rangers and bear cubs and that kind of thing. I grew up wanting to be a forest ranger. Instead, I got married young, and I'm happy with that. Now, with what I've learned about Sasquatch and Dogman being out there, I don't think I'll go camping again. We just did a little camping in state parks. What happened to me happened in the spring of 1981. My husband and I went on an overnight float trip on the upper Merrimack River in Bourbon, Missouri. It was a Monday, so we're the only ones on the river. We got up out on the river in our canoe by Joe from Joe's Canoe Rentals. Our first day we had a bad storm come up and had to pull out of the river for a bit, and this will come to play later. Before evening, we came upon our place to spend the night. It was the entrance to a cave up a hill we had to climb. It had a large floor with a rock covering and sides and a back wall that had an entrance to a cave. We did not go into the cave. We had an uneventful evening and fell asleep. About 1 a.m, I awoke to hearing what sounded like a man breathing, slow and steady in and out. It was fairly loud, and it wasn't my husband. I woke him up and heard it too. It was coming from inside the cave. We would hear grunting sounds, and whatever it was would move around. We would hear its fur rub against the walls of the cave. And whenever it did this, a group of bats would fly out. Okay, I'm going to interrupt this for a second. How could you even think that that wouldn't happen? Right? Think about how many of us would go sleep outside the mouth of a cave at nighttime without even going in there and seeing. This just sounds like a scary movie, right? Sorry, I just had to say that. And whenever it did this, a group of bats would fly out. Icing on the cake, the bats flying out of the cave. My husband says he remembers hearing aggressive sounding grunts, and he says it would stomp on the ground, and the ground under us would shake. I don't remember that, but I was so occupied with trying to get my legs to stop shaking. They were shaking so bad that it was making noise rubbing up against the sleeping bag, and I feared the noise would attract whatever was in the cave. At the time, we assumed it was a bear, though in 1981 there were no bears in Missouri, according to the Conservation Department. Well, now there are, I believe, around 300 to 500. I believe they now allow bear hunting, but back then there weren't supposed to be bears. Back to the story. We were really afraid. My husband said there was a cliff on the outside wall, but he didn't think I would be able to climb up to it. I climbed it. It was actual rock climbing. It was actual rock wall climbing, finding fingertip and toe holds up about 10 feet and over about 5 feet to get the ledge that sat on the outside of the space. Our feet hung over the treetops from the hill we had climbed to get up there. We sat up there for hours, waiting for the sun to come up. When it did, I watched the entrance to that cave while my husband got down and packed up our stuff. Whatever had been in that cave was being quiet, or it was gone. We got back on the river, and I can tell you that I was so scared. The river wasn't very wide, and I was so afraid something's going to jump out from the reeds and come after us. When we finished our trip and met up with Joe, we asked him if there were any bears in Missouri, and he said, "Sure." I said, "Well, we had one in our cave last night." Then he said something really strange. He said, "Oh, they're just honey bears, not much bigger than a good-sized dog. We didn't have any bears, and Kansas didn't have any turkeys." What? We didn't have any bears, and Kansas didn't have any turkeys? Kansas is the best turkey hunt in the States. So we gave them some turkeys, and they gave us some bears. Let me read that again. Sorry, that was a quote from him. His quote was, "Oh, they're just honey bears, not much bigger than a good-sized dog. We didn't have any bears, and Kansas didn't have any turkeys, so we gave them some turkeys, and they gave us some bears." That was really weird, as the conservation officer said we didn't have any bears in Missouri at that time. I wonder if he said that to not cause us fear, as maybe he knew something was out there and he didn't want word to spread that would affect his business. That's my story. What do you think it was? I assume it was either a bear or Bigfoot. Thanks for all you do. Kathy Murphy. What do I think it was? Well, I can tell you what I don't think it was. I don't think it was a bear. Bears aren't cave dwellers. They're out looking for something to eat, especially at nighttime. No, I bet you don't. I don't know anybody who goes camping in front of a cave entrance without going in there to make sure nothing. Then again, what am I talking about? All caves have monsters, right, you guys? All right. I appreciate you sending that in. I don't envy that fright that you had. Now, do we read this? Let's start reading. I'm not sure. It's a common title. This is titled 3 Weird Things. Maybe some of the emails have been titled 3 Encounters. I don't know. Let's get into it. Thanks, Steve, for all you're doing for the benefit of mankind and the awesome backdrops. You are appreciated. Thank you for the kind words, and you're very welcome. Here are 3 weird sightings to share. I live in the country in southwest Ohio. First, this is several years ago, about 25 years. I was driving along a highway at night alone, about 60 miles per hour, when an image in the form of a human outline came into view in the headlights right in the middle of my lane. But this image was see-through, clear. It was only the outline of a human figure. For example of how this looked, Think of the outline of your hand pressed against a sheet of clear cellophane. Lift your hand. Notice how it leaves lines that outline the shape of your hand and fingers with lines radiating out away from the imprint. That is how this thing looked. Thoughts raced through my mind like, what the hell? Do I go straight ahead? What if it passes through my car? What if I hit it? I don't want this thing in my car. And a million other thoughts. Instinct took hold and I swerved left around this thing. I wondered, should I go back? I was unarmed at the time, so nope. And it would probably be gone by now anyways. The image was bulky, like a man in a spacesuit, kind of bulky large, and I reckon about 6 or 7 feet tall. Second experience. About 15 years later, walking in the woods, this time it's in the daylight, I saw the same kind of thing again, slightly off to my right. It was just standing there facing me and then disappeared after a few seconds of me looking at it. There was no fear or smell, no sound other than my own feet shuffling through the leaves as I walked. Number 3. This is the most recent and even stranger, only about a year and a half ago. I'm almost always alone in the woods hunting morel mushrooms or just being out there enjoying the quiet freedom. The woods are my favorite place to be. Now this sounds crazy, but I know what I saw. When I first noticed this thing, a thought came into my head that your eyes are playing tricks on you. But as I turned my head and blinked my eyes, it was still there in the same place in the trees about 30 feet off the ground. It was in the shape of an oval, and the center of it, bird, all that could be seen inside and through it. I think you meant blurred. I could see the blurry branches inside or behind it, and all outside it clearly. It was about 8 feet long and 5 feet tall oval, passing very slowly from one tree to another as it was moving through the very thick, as if it was moving through a very thick liquid. There was not just a blurred vision thing. This was not just a blurred vision thing because I moved my head and blinked my eyes and it was still there in the same place. I thought of shooting at my rifle, but at that angle I don't know where the bullet would have come down if it went all the way through. What in the world was that? And on a side note, I've heard the tree knocks in the woods before, not knowing who or why someone would do that. Now I know. Thanks. I hope this helps those who have seen similar things as I have. D. Akers. That's an odd one. Mr. Akers. Let's see if anybody else chimes in with something similar. One thing for sure is there's a lot of weird shit going on. A lot more than just these hairy people. Alright, this next one is titled R.E. The Hairy Naked Indian. Another railroad item. No need to read, huh? No need to read. Alright, I'll pass on that. Sorry. Okay. This is titled My Bizarre Encounter. Hi Steve, I've followed your channel for over a year now. I enjoy and appreciate the work that you're doing. I was reluctant to share my experience for 2 reasons. First, the location, as I never expected to have an encounter anywhere near where I live. Secondly, it was an audible encounter only, but what an encounter it was. I'm 64 years old, a father and grandfather. This event happened 10 or 12 years ago. I don't remember the exact date. I thought I would just put it out of my mind, but I guess we all know that ain't gonna happen. I'm a hunter and a fisherman. I've been in the woods a lot. I've been all over this wildlife area over the past 40 years, and I've never had anything unusual happen. But this happened in the East Fork Wildlife Area about 13 miles east of Cincinnati, near where the East Fork of the Little Miami River runs into the East Fork Lake. It was a pleasant sunny day with low humidity, so I thought I would go out and catch a couple of bass. It was probably around noon or 1 in the afternoon. I parked the car and the water was a few hundred yards away. I was not looking for or thinking about Bigfoot. I walked towards where I wanted to go, and there's a small hill to go down to get there. And at the bottom of the hill, there's a huge field. There's nobody else around. It's just me and my fishing rod, and I was not armed. I got to the bottom of the hill, and the water was still probably over 100 yards away. And at the end of the field, adjacent to the water, is the woods. I was a pretty good distance away from the tree line, and the area was open and flat. All at once, there was this extremely loud, very deep roar that came from in front of me. It was nothing like I'd ever heard before. I was absolutely paralyzed and could not move, even though I wanted to run and be anywhere else but where I was at the moment. The sound went through my entire body. Not only my chest, I felt it in my thighs, my calves, my arms, and my head. It was a bizarre, penetrating vibration that I hope I don't experience again. I was absolutely helpless and could not move. I felt like I was in a bubble or enveloped in something. I could not hear anything but the deafening roar. I thought for a moment that it might be the end of the world. It came on so fast and so loud. This portion of the roar seemed to last for 45 seconds to a minute, as best as I could tell. After the loudest part of the roar was over, the thing continued to exhale for what seemed like another 30 to 45 seconds. Holy shit, that is absolutely insane, isn't it? Isn't that crazy? Imagine what it sounded like when Darth Vader exhaled in the Star Wars movie, but very loud, long, and deep. I suppose I could also describe the sound as letting air out of a big air compressor, but with a lower pitch. What a lung capacity they must have. Or maybe their respiratory system is such that they can inhale and roar or exhale at the same time. I was terrified with a level of fear and dread I had never felt before. The other thing was that I couldn't see it. I was shaking all over. I kept thinking that I just wanted to go home. And after it was finished exhaling, I realized I was able to move again, although I was still shaking and my body was tingling from the vibration of the roar. I remained standing where I was, continuing to shake, and started an overlapping search to see if I could spot it. The thing had to be very close. I looked carefully and I saw absolutely nothing. I never smelled anything. There's no place for it to hide. Then, oddly enough, I remember smiling slightly with a little chuckle and thought, that was a Bigfoot. I said to myself, I've got to get out of here and quick. I wanted to go home. Next, the thought came to my mind that, quote, nope, I came here to fish and I'm going to fish, end quote. No shit. And guess what? I proceeded over to the water and started to fish. My heart wasn't really into fishing after what I had just went through, though. These beings can absolutely put thoughts in your mind that are not your own, and they have the power of invisibility. I managed to fish for a few minutes, didn't catch anything. I guess the being left and I didn't feel obligated to fish anymore, so I slowly walked back to my car, still bewildered about the whole ordeal. And all these years later, I'm still bewildered. That's my story. It is absolutely true. It is still hard to accept what happened. I hope my experience helps someone. I don't really care what people think about me. My name is Mike Shell, and you can use my name if you want. Thanks again, best regards, Mike, and P.S. I enjoyed your book and I look forward to the next one. Holy shit, Mike. And you went fishing anyway. Good for you. That almost sounds like something I might do, maybe. I don't know. But I haven't experienced that roar, and there sure has been a lot of you out there that have, though, isn't there? Hasn't there? And I was just thinking, as you were describing your experience, and now that we know there's so many other people that have experienced the same thing, And just imagine how many of you right now have the hair on your body standing up right this second after you heard your experience described perfectly by our friend here. Why do they do that to us? You know what I mean? Why? I don't understand that. I mean, that, I don't know. I shouldn't even, I just bite my lip. Just keep listening, take it all in. Keep listening and take it all in. Wow. All right. I think I'm going to have a shower and get some sleep. I got a big day tomorrow, and by the sounds of it, I'm not going to be able to make it home, and I do have my bow with me. So I am going to go to one of my other favorite places in the world and see if maybe I can get myself a great big blacktail buck again with my bow. And then on the rifle thing, I stopped at a gun store in Prince George. Good place. Told them what happened to my bolt, and it's not sounding too good. Apparently, my rifle is made by the Montana Rifle Company. It's a custom left-handed gun. And apparently you can't just buy another bolt and slide it in there. It might have to be tuned or tweaked, so you got to ship your rifle. So thankfully, when I lost the bolt to my rifle, I was thinking, and I had a roll of flagging tape, and I taped my route through all those regrowth pine trees perfectly. So I'll buy a metal detector, I guess, and I'll have to find it in the spring. Bit of a pain in the ass, but gotta do what you gotta do. And it's funny, you know, the very, very first thought that went through my head when I saw the bolt gone was grizzly bear. It's the very first thing, because last year, the same time of year, there was a grizzly doing heat laps in that spot where I was headed in the snow. But whatever, not like I haven't been in the woods unarmed in grizzly bear country before. And how does the bolt come out of a rifle? I don't know. You know what? It's a simple button on the side of the gun that gets pushed in with a spring, and it just springs back out. Push it in, push it out. And I have a feeling, I mean, it was minus 12 or 14. This ice is all over my gun. I'm fumbling with it, trying to keep it on my shoulder. I'm going underneath all those pine branches for 400 yards. Ice, snow, my hand on it. I'm guessing it got some moisture, froze up, and going through all the branches, probably caught my bolt, flipped my bolt up, and then it just would have fell backwards and fell out of my gun. Just like that. Zip, gone. And I've never had that happen before in my life, and I was just thinking, like, my God, imagine if that happened, and if I was on one of those drop-off fly-in hunts. Oh, you imagine? Dropped off by a float plane, then you do your 1 or 2 day hike away from the lake, and then your bolt's lost. Oh my God, that would suck. That thought came to my head pretty quick. But anyway, there you go. There's some more shared. Hope you enjoyed part of my road trip. And I think I'll be able to do this tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow for sure. From somewhere in the province, as I travel south. And hope and pray that everybody on the island is safe from the storm and all those trees falling down. It is a dangerous thing going on right now. But I know Sarah and the kids and the animals are all safe. At my house, they're safe. But I hope everybody else is safe. I'll be back tomorrow. Share my story at howtohunt.com. That's where you get it shared word for word. See you guys tomorrow.